The name of this channel is now Weird Beautiful Things, and I'm going to call this podcast the Weird Beautiful Things Podcast. What do you think about that?
I like it.
Yeah.
I feel weird.
I feel weird too. I always feel a little weird, but tonight I feel really weird. So tonight, the subject of our new podcast, or our continuing podcast, is this movie right here. Henry V, Kenneth Branagh's version of Shakespeare's Henry V. All right, so we got a little outline. We're going to talk about this movie. We've got a lot of different things we want to kind of get into, so let's get started.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how redemption and power are communicated through the visuals, the music, and the performance in this movie. So let's talk about the ideas of redemption and power first, and then we can get into how the different elements
Sounds good. Sounds good.
illustrate those things. So let's talk about redemption first. How does this movie encapsulate the theme of redemption? What do you think?
Oh, that's an excellent question. Well, we know that Hal is his father stole the throne previously, and so he inherited the throne. I don't want to say illegally. That's not the right word.
Not
What's
really
the right
illegally,
word?
yeah. So just for people that aren't too familiar with Shakespeare's, this is one of his history plays, right?
Right.
And he wrote there's what's called two tetralogies, which was a series of 4 plays. Shakespeare actually invented the prequel, I think, because he originally, the first set of the plays that he wrote was the Henry VI plays. And I believe that one, it's 3 parts. It's Henry VI, part 1, 2, and 3. And then it ends with Richard III.
That's correct.
And then this movie is the last play in the other tetralogy, but it was written after, but in historical sequence it happened before. So that's why he invented the prequel.
It's very confusing sometimes.
Yeah. So it's just like what Lucas did with Star Wars, right? He did 4, 5, and 6 first, and then he went
Right.
back and did 1, 2, and 3.
Right.
This is basically the same kind of thing. Shakespeare wrote Henry VI, parts 1, 2, and 3, and then Richard III. That's his first tetralogy. And then he went back and wrote Richard II, Henry IV, part 1, Henry IV, part 2, and ended it with Henry V.
This is your Shakespeare
That's right.
history lesson.
So anyway, I got a little divergent there. My brain is divergent, so I got to get a little crazy sometimes. But the point is, this is the last play in a series of 4 plays. So there's a lot of history that goes into where we are when this thing even starts, right? And the big thing when we talk about redemption is Hal. This is Hal. Henry V is Hal.
Right.
In the Henry IV plays, they call him that, but that's who he is. His father was Henry IV, and he took the throne in a play that you and I actually performed in years ago, Richard II.
Correct.
And in that play, he essentially steals the throne, and the way he becomes king is certainly suspicious. Fast forward to where we are here. So Hal is trying to redeem himself and redeem the throne, redeem England for what a lot of people view as maybe an illegitimate monarchy, or he's maybe not the legitimate king. And his father, in parts 1 and 2, you see a lot of he experiences a lot of rebellion. So Hal's really trying to redeem himself for his father's
Prove
sins.
the worthiness through many different fashions, not just being a good king, but being a religious king, which was really important.
Yeah, being a religious king, and also one of the other things, and we'll get maybe more into this later, is the fact that when his father was alive, before he became king, he hung out with some questionable characters. And you actually see those characters in this play. But at this point, Hal has disassociated himself with those people. So,
well, he had to disassociate himself with those
once
people.
he became king, he really couldn't. These guys are thieves. And the chief character among them is this almost father figure, because Hal in the Henry IV plays has a bit of a conflicted relationship with his father,
Yeah.
and Falstaff kind of steps in and takes kind of a father role for it. And we saw a really amazing. Which one was it? Henry IV Part 1 or 2 that we saw with Tom Hanks playing Falstaff? Remember that?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I
Yeah,
think
we saw it on stage here in L.A.
right, and it was an outdoor theater.
Yeah, it was really
really
cool.
magical.
Yeah. We got to see Tom Hanks play Falstaff, and that's a really epic character.
Yeah.
So that character is briefly in this movie, but really he's there as a representation of Hal's previous life.
Correct.
And him shunning that and turning away from them. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about redemption and power. How are they communicated through visuals, music, and performance? Well, certainly through the performance. You see, especially Branagh carries that weight
Absolutely.
of what's come before, how he became king,
Right.
and he feels like he needs to prove something. He needs to prove something to everybody. So that's the
Yeah.
redemption that he's chasing.
For sure.
And in terms of power, I mean, the whole thing's about power. It's
Well,
about
yeah. I mean, it's the struggle for everyone in their position, and what that means for their growth on that train of power, for sure. And it starts with the bishops.
Yes, it does. It really does.
That was a segue.
It is a segue. And part 2, the ghost of Henry's father, we've already kind of been talking about that. So
Right.
I don't even know. We kind of covered both of these in the first thing.
Right.
But that's the thing, is that, yes, Hal is finally become Henry V. He's the king now. When this movie starts, he's already king. So we don't see, but we do see some flashbacks. We see a scene with he and Falstaff that's from Henry IV. I mean, and we see also his friends from that era, which are Bardolph, Pistol, Nell Quigley, and the boy, which I don't know if they ever named that character. And
No,
that
it's
character,
just
by
the
the way,
boy.
is played by a very famous actor in this movie, but he is literally a boy at this point. Crispin plays, and it's a small role, but it's a very consequential role.
Excellently performed. Role.
Yeah. So that scene, all those characters are from Hal's life before he was king, when he was hanging out with these kind of reprobates. Mistress Quickly runs what's pretty much a brothel. I mean, there's some question about that, but yes.
It's pretty much
It's a brothel.
for
Yeah,
sure.
she's running a brothel and a bar, and all his friends are thieves and even Falstaff, who is a knight, but there's scenes in Henry IV where they go and try to steal stuff, and
Right.
and Hal never participates in that. He actually does some interesting things with Pawns, his friend in that, who doesn't appear in this play.
Right.
Anyway, let's get into.
Well, I'd like to take a step
Sure.
back. Let's start at the beginning of this movie, because it starts with the chorus, brilliantly performed by
The role
Derek
of the
Jacobi.
chorus. Yeah. Talk about what the chorus is, what that means to you.
So the chorus is going to guide you through the story, and it's going to help take you
So the
on the
chorus
journeys.
it is an old device that was even, I believe it originated in Greek theater.
Yes. Mhm.
And it's this idea of the chorus is this person that communicates directly with the audience.
That's right. They're telling you what's happening in the story and helping it move along for you.
Yeah.
And in this case, it starts the movie to introduce you to what is about to transpire. And one of the things I really love about this opening, it's all done in one shot.
Yeah.
And it takes you through the journey of the fact that this is a play
Yeah.
going to be performed on film. And that aesthetic, he maintains being the theater side of it, and he dresses
But he's
differently.
walking in a theater set or on a
Correct.
film set at
That's
that point,
correct.
or on a sound stage.
But then he moves into it, and it's really the film, and he's always a part of the story, but he's not one of the characters in the story. He's dressed differently.
Yeah, he's dressed very modern, and the costumes and sets are very history accurate. Like we said, this is one of Shakespeare's history plays, so it is based on real events.
And it's a very realistically
Yes.
performed story.
And it's one of the most realistic Shakespeare's, especially at that point. This movie was made, I believe, in the late 80s.
Yeah.
88 or 89. I actually should know that, but I don't. I believe it's maybe even 87. I don't know if it's in our notes. I don't know if we looked at it. Anyway, I know that it's the late 80s,
Right.
and it was a revolutionary film, and it was Kenneth Branagh's first directing experience, and he had
And one of
for
our
film.
all-time favorites.
It is really one of our. It is.
Joint.
I think still to this day, my favorite Shakespeare on film. And anyone who's been following us on this channel knows that we love Shakespeare.
Well, just a little bit.
Yeah, we're kind of obsessed with Shakespeare. And so we wanted to talk about this movie because we both really, really love this movie.
And it's a huge achievement in filmmaking overall. There is not an aspect of this film that fails. All of the performances, all the locations, the live action, the intimacy.
Yeah, the war scenes especially are very realistic and gritty.
But the movement of the camera, how it takes you into a scene and is resolving out of a scene, like
in
the
Mistress Quickly's speech. Yeah,
right,
that's
going
a great.
Back to the friends of.
Yeah, and the cinematography, the lighting is exceptional. It's really striking. I mean, even just the very first scene after we see Jack. Actually, even that scene, the beginning of the movie is a pure darkness, and the first line of the movie is "Oh, for a muse of fire," and you hear right before he says that line, Jacoby strikes a match, and he lights his face with just the match. It's so cool, and then he does, like you said, the whole rest of the thing in one shot, and he actually turns the lights on because, like I said, he's on a sound stage, and he lights the match, says the first few lines, and I don't remember which line it is, but then he turns the lights on at a certain point, and then the whole stage lights up.
And then as he finishes it, as we begin the play, he pushes the doors open and enter the actual beginning of the story. Which
brings us to number 3, I think, the church, politics, and justifying war. Because these very first couple of scenes, that's what they're all about. And like we said, Henry wants to redeem himself. He wants to redeem himself for what's happened with his father and for the way he lived his life before he became king. Yeah. He feels like he's really got something to prove. Yeah. And the clergy. So the very first scene after Derek Jacobi finishes his chorus introduction to what's about to happen or what they're even trying to do.
Another great lighting and intimate setting of these two people conspiring.
Yeah, so you see, again, another door open on black, and one of these clergymen walks in.
But it's the music that leads you into that scene,
Yeah,
too.
The music is great.
The music is transitional for each of the scenes. It's really brilliant.
Yeah, the music, who wrote the score? We have it in here, don't we? Somewhere, maybe, I don't know. Probably not. I should have this information. If we get to that, it's maybe in our notes.
We'll add those details.
Yeah, but anyway. So, yes, the score is amazing. The lighting is amazing. Anyway, but we get to these two characters, and they're conspiring. The church back then had a lot more power than it does now. It's still, especially the Catholic Church, and I believe at this point, these are still Catholics. This is before, because I think Henry VIII was the one that brought the Anglican Church in. So at this point, England is still a Catholic country.
Right.
This is before the Church of England. And these two guys are the Archbishop of Canterbury, I think, and I can't remember the other one. But anyway, they're pushing Henry towards war. They want him to go to war with France.
Absolutely.
And there's this whole question of whether or not I think the idea has already been set in motion that he's going to marry Catherine, who is the King of France's daughter.
That's correct.
Played by, this point, Kenneth Branagh's actual wife. Very famous actor as well now, Emma Thompson. So he's already betrothed to her, and the Brits are basically claiming that his marriage to her gives him rights to the English throne, or not the English crown. He's already the King of England, but also the French crown. That's right.
Because no woman should hold the throne.
This is the thing that Archbishop of Canterbury does this massive speech about this. Salic law is what they're calling it. And so basically the French are saying, well, yes, but the woman can't inherit. It's never been done. So we don't.
So let me take you on a historical journey as to how this process has brought us to this point.
So basically, what the end point of that is the Archbishop of Canterbury. I believe that's the character. This religious leader. I'm trying to remember the character. I believe
No,
that's
that's correct.
He has he's trying to convince Henry that they can't tell you. You are the King of France.
Right.
If you marry her, you are especially the legit King of France and England. So what happens is right after that speech, you get Henry, you can see Henry's wheels turning. You see it, Branagh's so great. He does a lot of stuff in these real close-ups. And all these actors are incredible with the language, but there's also a lot going on with just the eyes, the face. There's so much incredible
Subtlety.
film acting and just acting. There's just, we'll get into that more, but the entire cast is stellar.
Brilliant.
There is not
Absolutely.
a bad performance in this movie, even down to the smallest roles. Like I said, Christian Bale, later a massive movie star, is just a kid in this
just a
movie,
boy.
and he's great. He's great. You see, it's like even then, boy, that kid's got something going on. So the church, they're kind of arguing, let's go to war, and then a gift shows up for Henry. What happens there?
Oh, it's so magical. And this is such a brilliant speech, too. But the Prince of France sends Hal a gift. And the gift is tennis balls.
My liege.
My liege.
Yeah, so this is the character that sends this gift is the Dauphin, or the Dolphin. He is the French heir to the throne, the male heir to the throne. Well, so obviously he's quite threatened by Henry's claim that I'm going to be King of
100%.
France. So there's an existing King of France who's played by an older actor, again, and a very famous, fantastic elder statesman of the theater in England, Paul Scofield. A great actor we've seen many times and loved so much. He plays the King of France, and I don't remember the actor's name who plays the Dauphin, but they're both great. So at this point, you actually haven't met these characters, but the Dauphin, who is the heir to the French throne, ostensibly, if it's not Henry, sends him tennis balls. And the point of this gift, Henry realizes...
The mockery of this gift. Ooh.
Yeah, and the mockery is this gift. It's basically... Henry takes it, and I think correctly, to be that he's a lightweight, that the Dauphin believes that Henry is a lightweight, not to be taken seriously because of his past. Everybody knows that he used to hang out with these reprobates and do questionable things, and that's well known by everybody in both kingdoms, apparently.
Yes, but what he didn't realize is that the tennis game was going to become a whole different match.
Yeah. And Branagh does this incredible speech where he uses tennis as a metaphor about how he's going to come in and crush them. So basically, that moment, I believe, so there's this incredible thing. So they open the gift, and the Duke of Exeter, actor Brian Blessed, who's fantastic in this movie, this big ominous presence, or not ominous, but he's kind of joyful, but he's certainly intimidating. He's a very intimidating presence.
100%.
He opens up the gift. It's in this box, and Henry's far enough away. He asks him, "Uncle, what gift?"
Right.
And he says, "Tennis balls, my liege." And that there's this cut back to Branagh where he just blinks.
No, he pauses until the moment he's getting ready to present his response, and he blinks.
And I think it's that moment where
Yes.
he's like, "I'm going to war.
Here we go.
I'm going to go and take this."
You want to go, bro?
And there's this amazing scene after they walk out the door and everything. The last two people to leave the room are the two clergymen.
The clergymen.
And they share this moment where they basically like, "We did it.
We did it." That's 100% what they did. Yeah.
Yeah. So they wanted to go to war, and they're going to war.
Yeah.
So that is definitely, and it's interesting to see the church, because I believe if you listen closely to the speech, there's financial things at play, there's power at play, there's all these reasons why they want Henry to go to war. He's already close to them, so if he's now running France and England, they've got an ally in both places. So
Yep.
That is definitely what we're seeing here. Okay, so number 4, King's isolation, losing the self to power. That's our next note. And we talked a little bit about this already. Henry must abandon his old life with Falstaff and the group. We talked about the Pistol and Bardolph and the boy and Quickly, and what's the other guy's name? I don't know. Nim. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So he's got to turn his back on all those people.
Yeah.
But at this point, the first scene we see them, we do find out that they're all about to go to war. Basically everybody's mobilizing because Henry's decided we're going to war in France. All these guys have got to go with him. And even the chorus has this great thing. Right. Now all the youth of England are on fire. And he goes into this whole thing about how they're getting ready to go to war.
Right.
And so there's this in this series of scenes with these characters, you also get a whole flashback to when Hal knew all of them. We talked about that earlier. And you see him, even in that scene, this is before he's actually done it, but he's decided, he knows, even then, that when he becomes king, he'll have to turn his back on these friends.
Right.
And he has at this point. And now Falstaff is pretty sick at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about the king has killed his heart. He's old and drunk and fat. Yeah. There's probably a lot of reasons why he's actually dying, but I can't blame that on Henry.
Right.
But yes, Falstaff is dying and Hal is nowhere to be seen.
Right. And
that's kind of the point. They were close. This guy was like a father to him.
Like a father, absolutely.
And now he's not even there, and he's dying. And when he dies, again, a very small role, but played by another very famous actress who many of you probably know, Judi Dench.
Dame Judi Dench.
Dame Judi Dench. She plays Mistress Quickly, and she delivers this speech about finding his dead body, or essentially being there the moment he died. Absolutely. And having her hands on him. And it's incredible.
It's a remarkable speech.
Yeah, it looks really like the camera's sitting on a jib, and they do this incredible.
Yeah.
She starts the speech, and the camera just slowly moves in on her as she's speaking. And then at the exact right moment, it lands, holds there for a second.
And really then
breathtaking. And she's sitting on a set of stairs, and she's surrounded by the rest of the characters from that part of Hal's life. And at the moment when it's going to come back out to them, because I think Christian Bale has a line about, they have some very great dialogue, funny dialogue actually, that kind of breaks because she is so emotional and so connected to the loss of this friend of theirs, who was, and Falstaff is a bigger than life, very compelling character.
It's devastating.
He's very lovable,
for them all.
So it's a great moment. Yeah. So let's get into what happens next. So we talk about
big stuff coming up.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about losing the self to power, Judi Dench, and one of the things that is really good in this with this idea is, because he rejects all these people, we're going to fast forward a little bit. We're not going to follow in sequence. He ends up not just rejecting all these people, not being there for Falstaff's death, but Bardolph, one of those characters, gets in a little trouble when they're in France, and he ends up hanging his friend, Hal Henry.
Yeah.
Allows Bardolph to be hung.
And what a devastating moment.
And you can see, and they do a quick flashback right around the time of that scene. You see he and Hal when they're drinking together, and so this was an old friend of his who did something wrong. That he stole from a church or something like that. I think he did.
I think they were stealing from the dead.
Yeah, they were doing something that
they were stealing
in war. They were in war, but they were doing something they shouldn't have been. And he does hang him, and it's it's a.
And it's him having to be a king and follow the rules. It didn't matter that they were friends. It just has to be done.
There's a great, and there's this moment right before they go to the big battle with the French, that when we talk about wars, redemption, and leadership on the battlefield, this is a very famous speak. It's the St. Crispin's Day speak. And it's all about
performance.
It's Henry. There's a few of these speeches. There's also the once more under the bridge speech.
Oh yeah,
where he's really rallying the troops, and you just see this guy, this young man, become a leader.
Right.
And I think it really is analogous to what was going on with Kenneth Branagh at that point. He's 28 years old when he makes this movie. First directing for film. Believe he had directed for stage before that, but this guy's coming on the scene. Nobody knows who he is.
Yeah.
He's done a little bit of acting before this.
I think they had been working on this play as well.
Yeah,
for
and he
some
had done
time
this. I
prior
believe
to
this play, maybe with mostly this cast, he had done a run at the Royal Shakespeare Company. But this was a big deal. And he was nominated for an Oscar for both actor and director for this movie.
That is correct. And they won for costumes?
And it won for costumes, yes. It did not win. It may have even been nominated for Best Picture. I may be wrong about that. I think it was just him for actor and director.
I think
Either
you're
way.
right on that.
But it's incredible. And I think that what's going on in the story and of Henry like having to prove himself, Branagh felt that. You could see how connected he was to that character.
I mean, truly one of the great Shakespearean performances in a lead role like that.
Yeah, because we've seen him do other Shakespeare, and he's a great actor, great Shakespearean actor, one of the best. But I've never seen him do anything like this. You know, this movie is his masterpiece. Yeah. He peaked at 28. He kind of had an Orson Welles moment.
Yeah, we joked about that.
But he definitely, man, what a performance. The English do win this war against the French.
The accuracy of the history.
That's right. They actually quote some numbers which are pretty astonishing. The number of English casualties versus the number of French casualties. And the numbers are accurate. They're in the play, and they're historically correct. And the reason why, technically, was because there was I believe, an innovation in weaponry, the longbow, and the English had this that and the French did not. And
but they believed it.
But they do believe in the play. It's very much kind of framed that God was on their side. And maybe they felt that way back then, and certainly.
Well, remember the. Kingship is the next thing to God, so
yeah, the monarchy for sure. Yeah,
it's the closest thing.
But anyway, he wins. He redeems himself as a great leader. Right. It's unquestionable now that he's a great king. He's led these people through hardship. He's won the battle, and now he's going to go woo the woman. Even though they're already betrothed to each other, right. They're getting married either way. But yeah, and he's going to become king.
Which is a good place where, we have a little reprieve of this intense emotion that these characters have been going through, and we get to see a little more lighthearted side.
Oh, definitely. The wooing scene is great.
It's really, really, really lovely.
Yeah, and Emma Thompson's character doesn't speak any English. There's a scene earlier that we really didn't talk about, which is all in French. It's one of the few scenes I think that Shakespeare ever wrote all in French.
And I love that scene too. Yeah. It's really, it's fantastic that they performed it all in French.
Yeah, I mean, that's written by Shakespeare. He wrote it that way.
Like I said, it should be. And it's such a fun, and again, beautifully acted by both she and her lady. Lady in
waiting, I believe.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah. And we talked a little bit about this before we get into that scene with Catherine a little deeper. I want to talk a little bit. I think I want to just reiterate the idea that every single one of the actors in this movie, and I'm going to list some of them here because you're going to know some of these names. Obviously, we've talked about a few of them already. Judi Dench, Ian Holm, Emma Thompson, Brian Blessed, Robbie Coltrane, Paul Scofield, and of course, Christian Bale. Already, a lot of these people were not stars, but they became stars. But every performance is just
spot
excellent.
On. It's spot
excellent.
On.
Just, the character,
really
Ian Holm, again, another very famous actor. He plays Lieutenant Dan? No, not. Fluellen. He plays Fluellen. So let's get into the wooing scene a little more. So it really is a nice kind of lighthearted thing. Although these people have been betrothed to each other as royalty frequently was in this day and age.
But it's also got a little, Kate and Petruchio in it because, she's still trying to stand her own ground.
Yeah, and she's like, it's a cool scene because even though their marriage is inevitable, you see him trying to be like, look, I want you to like me.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't want this to be tough between us. I want
you to prove that you're going to be a good
guy
to me.
This guy's coming in, he just killed a bunch of people.
You're not going to destroy me and treat me like a slave or something.
What are your final thoughts about this movie? What do you want to say about this movie?
I would say For me, it's actually not just one of my favorite Shakespearean movies. It's actually one of my favorite movies of all time. Definitely in my top five. And because of everything that we talked about, just from how it was shot, the direction, the lighting, the music, how it transitions, the reality of the set and the clothing, but just some of the most brilliant performances from an ensemble from beginning to end. I mean, it just truly kept you in the world of what was happening. And because it is based on history, it felt like you're getting to see a picture of history and time that you would never have understood what may have happened. So that was, it's just a beautiful piece of art, cinematography, theater, a film, everything. That's my feeling.
That I agree with all of that. Ditto. No, I'll say something. I I can't even remember the first time I saw this movie. I'm sure I was in college. And I feel like I probably saw it with my buddy Patrick Reed, who really was one of the first people who really, really started to get me into Shakespeare. Because that was before I went to college, I had not really, I'd never acted in Shakespeare. I really didn't know Shakespeare outside of the plays I'd read in literature classes in high school, Romeo and Juliet. I think I read that and Julius Caesar. I don't even think I read Macbeth at that point. Maybe I did. But seeing this movie, wow, it changed me. It changed my perspective about acting, changed my perspective about who I wanted to be as an actor. I was studying acting already, but
Yeah, it was really
it changed me.
inspiring,
It
right?
changed me. And I've seen this movie. I can't even remember how many times I've seen it. We just watched it again. We even tried to watch part of it. We watched it last weekend. And we tried to watch it again last night, but we started it too late and fell asleep. But we've seen this movie so many times that we've almost got it memorized. And we have our favorite moments. My favorite moment, God, if I have to choose one, I'm a big sucker for big emotional speeches. And I love the tennis ball speech. That's, to me, that moment, the decision to, I'm going to go to war, and what he says, that's just it's a man thing, but it's cool. It's just to see him like, all right, here we go. I got to prove myself, and this is what I'm going to do it. And then also, the other really big one that I really, really love is when the night before they go to battle, just this whole sequence.
Yeah.
So they've come to France, they've won several battles, but now they're about to really take on the French army. They've taken a couple small towns on the way, and you've seen some of that, but now they're going to go to battle with the French, the French army.
Right.
And the night before, Henry actually he wears this cloak over his eye. It's this typical kind of Shakespearean device, but they do it pretty well, where he goes and kind of walks amongst the men.
He had his invisibility cloak.
Yeah. So he goes and he meets with some of the soldiers, and he finds that they have doubt and they're concerned, and it's brought up because they don't know who they're talking to.
Yeah.
That if this is a bad choice, it's on him, not them.
Right.
And he's nervous. He's got to be. He's outnumbered. That's already brought up. He's way outnumbered. And this is the other thing about those numbers that we bring up later, why those are so incredible, because the French, I think they had him like at least 5-1 or something.
It was insane, yeah.
So he does this speech that is not today, oh Lord, not today.
Oh,
and it's all about that's the speech that takes you back to all of the history. He brings up his father and how he became king and how he murdered Richard and all these things, and he's so worried that he's going to have to pay for these sins, and he's going to have to pay for what he's done. But he talks about all these things that he's been doing to honor Richard as repentance for what his father did.
Yeah.
I mean, he's hired these people to go to his grave, and they do there's a whole slew of things he's been doing for years.
Oh, yeah.
That he's like, I'm so sorry that I became king this way. It wasn't my choice.
That's right.
And here we are. Don't take it out on me and my men tomorrow. And Branagh's delivery of that speech, he's got tears streaming down. It's just incredible. It's an incredible performance. So those
Absolutely
two
draws you in.
speeches
Yeah,
are for
for
me
sure.
the key, and that's the key moment. And I also really love the realism of the battle scenes. It's a lot. It's a little kind of Braveheartish. There's a lot of slow motion, and it's bloody and realistic. They're all covered in mud, and the whole battle sequence all the way through the end when they murder the boys and you see
Ooh,
Christian Bale, because that was one of the things the French knew they were losing,
yeah.
and they go in at the end and kill all the young boys that were
Yeah.
there. It's
It
really
it
reprehensible.
destroys you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Christian Bale is one of the ones,
Yeah.
the one
Right.
the character that died.
Yeah.
And that whole sequence through the fight, through that scene,
Yeah.
and then there's this big tracking shot where there's this guy singing this "Do no bis do." It's like a Latin, some sort of
Dirge.
dirge, like a Catholic dirge, whatever. And they're carrying the bodies out and they're all walking through the field and they've got this long tracking shot and you're just seeing everything. You're seeing all the characters, the French characters you've seen, the English characters, the people that have died, the aftermath of this battle. It's so incredible.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Anyway, so those are the highlights for me. Those two speeches and the
Yeah.
entire battle sequence is just breathtaking.
For me, I
can't-
think that tennis ball speech as well, just because also just the way he uses the language, he really uses the words to emphasize his point, and it's such a gradual intensity to the
the
point
build is
in
great.
which you then realize, like you said earlier, he has become king. And to me, that whole progression and how he chewed into it, it was really fabulous. And then for me also, just, and this, Judi Dench, that speech. So
She's
we talked about
She
earlier.
and Emma Thompson are the only two female characters. Oh, actually, no, the lady in waiting's the third.
Yeah,
character.
and she's
there
lovely
are
too.
There are three women,
But
it's mostly men.
that's-
It's Shakespeare. That's not uncommon. Yeah.
But that speech, that delivery, we talked about it earlier. So those two for me are always the. Yeah.
What stays with you the most? The speech, the music, the image.
Oh,
To me, it's the performances.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I always think about when I think about this movie and I think about a lot of
Agreed.
them. I love Brian Blessed as Exeter. There's this
so good.
incredible moment when the English first arrive in France at the French court, where Blessed walks in full armor.
He looks like he weighs 1,000 pounds, but he's walking on clouds.
Yeah, it's such an amazing
It's
scene.
very powerful.
Yeah, it's great. It's like the ambassador from England is here, and you don't know who it's going to be at this point, and then he walks in, armed, and he's got a sword on.
but
and
with
he's-
total ease.
all right, well, so we'd love to get anybody comment in the comments about if you've seen this movie. What are your thoughts about this movie?
Right.
We love this movie. If you haven't seen this movie, highly
What
recommend.
are your favorite parts of the movie? What are your favorite parts?
Yeah.
What
We
do
love
you
talking
think,
about this.
about the cinematography, the music, all of it.
Yeah, and I think we're going to keep doing this thing. I mean, I did one last week on my own talking about Jesus Christ Superstar, but I love this of dialogue too. We'll probably do more of this. This is a movie. This is a channel about filmmaking, my filmmaking career. If you don't know about that, go watch some of my other videos. I'm not going to talk about that right now, but I am going to start talking about some of the movies that I love because it's important. It's like
Gives you a little background of who you are.
as a musician, I always talk about the musicians that affected me, and I always think about the great albums and things that influenced me. And I, as a filmmaker, I have similar things. So I'm really going to dig into that. And I love having Farrah. Farrah's my creative partner, as we talked about in our previous little podcast.
So watch and click
right.
and like and
That's
subscribe
right.
and do all the
Do
things.
all
Bing
the
bang
things.
boom. Get
It helps
done.
us. It helps us. It helps us. We're going to keep doing this. I hope you guys enjoy this. I was looking at myself on the TV. I should look into the lens. Hey there. All right, guys.
What's your
Appreciate-
weird and wild tagline?
Yes. My weird and we're going to keep making weird, beautiful things, and we're going to keep talking about weird, beautiful things. See you guys next time.